Oh, I actually probably need to change the thumbnail, otherwise what I'm saying isn't true. It's just a picture of floor 1. There we go. Right, okay. Then I'll get that link and go music fat rat. Okay, right, that's there. And actually, to be fair, the video that I'm referencing in the description of the thumbnail is actually about live streaming as well. So there's an interesting thing for you. So I guess I'm going to pop out chat, get myself a cushion, relax with some fat rat,
oh yeah, boy,
and listen to mate's witticisms. Would you like to tell me, mate, how your day has been today and what you've been doing?
Well, you see, I'm a bit of a cake snake, mate.
Oh, I see you changed your name to Cake Snake. Explain that to me, mate.
Well, basically, you know, future stories, mate.
Oh, I absolutely do.
Well, you see, today was the last one, and we didn't actually have to come. But I thought, since I missed the last one because of the concert, I should probably go to this one.
All right.
And this one was a little bit different because instead of teaching them, we were, so like, they needed 16 people to come. 8 people would like invigilate them doing an exam, and then all 16 people would like take the parents and the kids on like a tour around the school.
What, the school is in our old school?
Yeah, that one.
I almost said its name there. I only thought about that until the very last minute. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be any great, massive shame if I said it. I just, you know, I'm scared about them, you know. People should be free to express their opinions, but they're honestly the kind of school that would probably take me to court over libel if I criticised them, even though I'm not there anymore. I mean, they pretty much, in other words, threatened to do that while I was there. So,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you could probably find out what it is anyway. There's probably quite easy means to do so, but I'm going to try not to say it so I don't implicate myself in any trouble that gets invented by them. Started watching one of your videos and I started saying out loud, "Good morning, good afternoon, I'm becoming addicted." Well, thanks very much. I'm glad you are. That's that.
Mate,
I guess.
I need to finish my story.
Oh, sorry, mate. I guess that's the kind of highest praise, though, isn't it, mate? Like, you know, they come addicted to your content. I mean, I'm glad you enjoy it. Anyway, mate, carry on.
Yeah, so someone was like, okay, who wants to do some invigilating? And so, like, some people went off and did that. And then I went off somewhere, and when it was time for the tours, well, there was, I think I ate a bit too much, mate, to be honest.
Like me at Nando's, mate.
Sandwiches. Huh?
Like me at Nando's. Like,
Sure.
I
Hello,
went to Nando's with the lads.
You ate my spicy rice.
MuddyPuddle and David. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, mate. Well, I don't think I so much ate your spicy rice as forgot to get you a spicy rice. Because, well, we all kind of forgot what we were ordering and for who. But
I thought you told me just before that you got me my spicy rice. Or did I mishear you?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, mate. I just must have forgotten that I started eating the spicy rice. But, I mean, you did get remunerated for what you paid, to be fair, mate, so...
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, in any case,
yeah.
long story short, in Nando's, I haven't been to Nando's in ages. And I went and I had a sunset burger. I love the sunset burger. Very nice. Very, very nice. I love it very much. It's one of the best pieces of food on the planet, and it is brilliant. And I like Nando's. But I think I ate it too quickly and I felt a bit ill. But then I was all right. But I like Nando's. Anyway, mate, carry on with your cakery snakery.
Cakery snakery, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I had 2 sandwiches, and I had a bit of like slightly little cookie things and a little bit of cake, and you know I just couldn't stop myself, mate. I had quite a bit.
Oh, my Battle Cats isn't up to date. That's why. Yeah. Anyway, carry on, mate. Sorry.
And so then it was time for the tours, but for some, unfortunately, like everything was running late. Like the tours were supposed to. Well, we were, at one point we were told that they were supposed to start at 4:15. Then we were told they were supposed to start at 4:30, and then they ended up not starting till 10:55. And normally, you know, it doesn't finish until 5. I didn't really want to, you know, go late, so I was like, you know, I'll just go. I wasn't the only one, to be fair.
So
yeah.
What was involved in your tours then, mate? What exciting places did you take them to?
Well, mate, I didn't, because
Oh.
I was a snake. I just took the cake and got out of there.
Oh wow, I just saw the volume spikes on OBS. I do apologise to any headphone users. Or anyone who's offended by my clap. But that is brilliant, mate. Congratulations. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah. So did you know where other people took people on tours then, mate?
Yeah, they did tell us which rooms were open.
Let me guess. The
rooms are different subjects.
The science rooms. I'm thinking. It's always the science rooms. You know, mate, I was trying to think of the name of my physics teacher in year 11, but I completely forgot his name. I cannot remember what his name was.
I don't know, what did he look like?
If you work it out, mate, probably write it in Discord.
Okay.
Kinda bald-ish?
Oh.
He came in, like, when we were in year 11, I think.
Oh, no, then. Oh, no. That would be a no. I'll delete that.
Oh, no, it wasn't. I think he was actually very rude to me once.
Oh, is it? Oh, he's the one whose name I don't really know.
Yeah, me too, mate. It's weird. You forget people.
Your physics teacher's the one you don't really know.
Yeah. So I can name other physics teachers, just not my physics teacher.
I think that says a lot.
Yeah. I mean, what was great about him was that he was okay with the fact that I didn't like physics. He was like, okay, just finish your GCSE and then you can drop it. I was like, yeah, alrighty.
That's probably because he knew you were doing well, mate.
I'm not too sure, mate. We were doing some of our coursework stuff, and I said, "So, is this right?" He said, "Actually, no, you've got it completely the wrong way around." I was actually, you know, expecting some kind of you could improve it by saying this, but no, I literally got it completely wrong. So that was fun. No, I was never really had a physics brain.
What?
To respond to the debate in chat, without wanting to like culturally appropriate or offend anyone, I will come to the defense of someone who thought it was Chinese. You know, Chinese and Japanese characters do look very similar to an untrained eye such as mine. I'm sure David would tell you that they look very different, but that's because he's been studying Japanese for ages, and I guess you'd start to see the difference. But to untrained eyes, I'm sure they do look very similar. I mean, I know they do look very similar. And there is a traditional Chinese version of the Battle Cats as well, so thinking it's Chinese, you know, you could be right in thinking that, but it is the Japanese version.
Are you sure you don't have a physics brain? I think it was just, you know, that particular thing that you just didn't understand.
Well, no, it was kind of physics in general, mate. I've got to be honest. Like, it's the study of everything I don't want to study. You know what I mean? Like maths and how things work.
In terms of what you enjoy, then yeah.
I think, mate, I had a CGP brain, which is what helped me. You know, I learned what to say without necessarily understanding it, and luckily you can do that at GCSE.
Thing is, I need to like make up a bunch of stuff and hope that something I've said in there is what they're expecting.
Ah. Oh, the spec. Flipping spec. Like biology mark schemes. Do you remember them, mate?
Oh, yeah. Mate, I can assure you, computer science was worse.
Was it? Well, what sort of things?
Well, I remember one thing in like the past paper we did. I said, oh yeah, the stuff is like stored and thing, but actually I needed to say that it was sent to the thing.
Oh, sorry, mate. I do apologise. I know I asked you to say it, but then I sort of zoned out. Could you say it again, please?
What was the question, mate?
About computer science, mark schemes.
Oh, right. Well, I needed to... So I said something like something was stored in the thing, but I needed to specifically say that it was sent to the thing.
That's a bit silly, mate.
Yeah. And I remember I used to always forget to mention the analog to digital converter, or the other way around.
Bit like DAB radio, hashtag media A level. Let's go.
Oh boy.
Yeah, like we're talking about analog to digital conversion. Well, not like the physical process of it, but like how radio's adapted. And I was like, oh, this reminds me of physics. No. None of that. None of that.
Oh god.
Luckily, it wasn't very physicsy, so we're all right. Oh no. Me chat. It's dead. Any tips for GCSE revision? Yeah. Run, first of all. Secondly, get CGP books. Like, absolutely, CGP is the only reason that I did well in my GCSEs. Like, for most GCSEs, I didn't have any kind of remote understanding, but CGP sort of not even necessarily helps you understand it, but helps you, you know the things you need to know. And actually, it kind of does aid understanding. And if a subject or like a text you're studying doesn't have a CGP guide, get another revision guide and just learn what it says in there. Especially helpful for like English and stuff. Just like, so I learnt for one of the poems we were studying, mate. Do you remember Sennacherib?
Oh no. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
That was quite a long one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I do like Sennacherib. It's got a nice kind of rhythm to it.
Nice.
And the rhythm of it, the meter, is called an anapestic tetrameter.
Yeah.
Now,
thanks.
well, no, it leads to my point. And I didn't know what that meant. It turns out it means like an anapest is the way something is stressed. So I think it's so it's unstressed, stressed. The Syrian came down like a wolf on the fold, and then tetrameter means that there's like 4 of each of those in a line. Now I didn't know that. I just wrote down anapestic tetrameter and made up an effect of it, and I think that really impressed my examiner, to be fair. You just find out big words and then write them and then justify it with some reason you've made up and you've passed English. That's like I don't have kind of an English brain. However, I have been taught the skills of what I like to call analytical bull shrimp in my family-friendly PG way. But yeah, I do like the destruction of Sennacherib though, and its anapestic tetrameter. The Assyrian came down like a wolf on a fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in yellow and gold. And the something and something and something and something, something and something, deep Galilee. So I've remembered it really well. I guess I don't need to remember it anymore, to be fair. What was your favourite poem in the, well, poems?
I think... Oh, I don't know. I think probably the one I knew the best was probably Poison Tree.
Oh, Poison Tree was a classic. I wrote about that one in my GCSE, mate.
I cannot remember if I mentioned it or not.
There was a question that was like, write about someone being killed in a poem. So I assume it wanted like the man he killed. And I remember, like, especially our English teacher saying to us, in the Poison Tree, you know, the protagonist doesn't kill the other person, but basically I therefore structured my entire essay because I wanted to do Poison Tree because I'd learned all about that and I knew lots of big words to write, and I just memorised my kind of revision guide for it. So I just structured the whole essay around how it's actually ambiguous and it might be that the person killed the other person, and therefore the fact that they aren't willing to admit it shows that they're covering up their deed and they somehow know that it's a bad thing, which sort of makes it even worse. Or I might have even argued because they're not saying it, they're making light of it, therefore they're a terrible person. With English, you need to just make up utter rubbish. Like, I did not believe a word of what I said, but I bet the examiners loved it nonetheless, because that's analytical subjects for you. You make stuff up. I mean, that's true of media to a certain extent. I think it's it's more kind of realistic, but you have to talk about how, like, a deep or shallow focus creates a meaning. Like, it probably doesn't. You know, it just looks nice. But that's denotation. It looks nice. You've got to get that connotation, which is making up stuff, and that's what gets you the marks. What exam board did you study? Because we've done none of these of AQA. Well, I mean, you know, those are for our year, so you're not going to get the same ones. And we were OCR, weren't we, mate?
What about mocks? Might get mocks.
Maybe,
yeah, OCR English, yeah.
but if they're AQA, they won't get that.
Yeah.
We had AQA for... I can't think what we had AQA for, not much. I know a lot of schools do, like, almost everything AQA, but our school was, like, snobbery. So it's like, oh, we do OCR because they're more difficult. Like, cheers. I mean, I guess in some ways that might have been good because, you know, lower grade boundaries.
Yeah.
And if I wouldn't understand science anyway, I guess I'd prefer it to be more complicated so the grade boundaries are lower. Like RS, because the grade boundaries are so high, I got a lower grade than I thought I would. But luckily, when remarked, I had scraped the higher grade. Yeah. What about Art GCSE? How did you do with all this coursework? Well, I actually did Art GCSE. And, you know, I both loved it and hated it. Like, the art department was the only good department in our old school, because it's, like, the only department that cared about you. But the coursework was insufferable, and there was so much of it, and I'm never going to do art ever again.
I think it depends on your teacher.
Yeah,
I remember my geography teacher was actually really good.
Yeah, I mean, my geography teacher was good, but, like, a department in general, it felt the most welcoming, the art department. But I would never do art ever again. I managed to, through lots of hard work
no, mate, I don't think that's because they care about you. I think that's just because they don't actually care.
Alright. Through lots of hard work and no life, I managed to get my B, which was like the utmost of what I could get. Because art, you know, what grade you're going to get is more set than in another subject because you have an artistic ability or you don't. And I really didn't. I mean, I could draw some things, but that was about it. Like paint, a year 3 could do a better job than I did. It's horrendous. And I had to use paint at some point because I had to use all different types of media. So yeah, art was fun and also really painful and miserable. But I feel like it's sort of, it's like the Irenaean Theodicy, to reference philosophy, or as you'll remember it from RS, mate, John Hick. Do you remember John Hick?
What did John Hick do, mate?
Suffering makes you strong is the idea he put forward as to why there's evil in the world.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe art GCSE was that necessary... Well, necessary contrast is completely different Theodicy, but that sort of necessary evil to morally develop me. I don't know, maybe it's just painful.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, mate. I guess it's nice to do, like, a range of different subjects.
Exactly, mate. I mean, I guess it sort of hands itself better for moving forward towards creative industry, because ultimately, I want to be a YouTuber. Well, I mean, I do. I love the idea of being able to stay at home. I hate going outside. I wouldn't say I'm agoraphobic, but I'd say I'm nearly there. Like, I'd much rather stay inside and make YouTube videos for my loving community. I mean, yeah. Some of you are nice, you know, it's good, but it's YouTube, isn't it? Some people aren't. But that's anywhere, you know. I'd much rather be bullied online than in real life. Online, you can just turn your computer off. Real life, you can't necessarily get away from it. People I don't like on the internet, I can block them. People I don't like in real life, well, you can't. The only way to block them would probably be in illegal ways. So that would be the point that I put forward. Ultimately, I'd like to do something like YouTube or maybe freelance editor, you know, using my iMovie. That sort of thing. You know, I could revolutionise editing, so you don't need fancy software, you just need iMovie. And like years of YouTube experience. What do you want to do when you grow up, mate? I mean, I say grow up, it's going to be like in what, either 1 or 4 years' time.
Are you talking to me, mate?
Yeah.
Sorry, what, can you just repeat it?
What do you want to do when you grow up, mate? Though, even though I say grow up, it's going to be either in 1 year or 4 years' time.
1 year or 4 years' time?
Yeah. Basically, what I mean by that, mate, is you either start a job after A-levels or after university. But I mean...
Oh, right, okay.
What do you want to do?
Oh no. Mate, don't do this to me. I don't like these questions.
Oh no, Cat.
Oh no.
Oh well, that's fine, mate. If you don't know what you want to do.
Something to do with like maths, you know.
Yeah. Oh, good for you, mate. You know, I'm glad there's people like you who actually understand maths, so that people like me can be free of maths.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, I don't mind basic level maths that actually helps you in life, but none of that's in the GCSE. By the time you got to year 9, or well, year 9 for us and year 8 for everyone else, i.e. the year before you start doing GCSE stuff, you've learned all the maths that you need. I can think the only possibly useful GCSE thing would be, you know, like compound growth and decay for like working out that sort of stuff, maybe.
Okay.
Because I mean that was quite useful. What was it like, mate? Was it the number times like the percentage as 1 equals 100%? So like 1.2 for 100 and for like a 20% rise to the power of how many years it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done, mate.
And then if it was... Thanks, mate. So if it was like a 20% decrease, would it be the number times 0.8 to the power of how many years?
Yeah, mate.
Oh, there you go, you see. I say years, that's if that's a percentage increase per year. It's technically per unit of time said. Yeah. But yeah, compound growth and decay, that's fine. But like, you know, when is a normal person, like, you know, I'm not talking about an architect, because in that case you would go further with maths, gonna use trigonometry, the sine and cosine rule, the, you know, stuff like that. That weird tangent to a circle thing. You know those questions where like a line goes past a circle and you have to work out a gradient somewhere. Like what the heck that was, I have no idea. And how that's useful to any normal person who stops maths after GCSE, I don't know. Maybe it's useful to someone who pursues maths, but then you pursue maths to a higher level. Why not include that stuff that's useless to normal, I say normal people who don't pursue maths? Why don't you just transfer that stuff to the people who do pursue maths, so that useful math skills are taught to normal people? What are you going to say, mate?
The awkward thing is that maths is kind of needed. Like, everyone should take maths GCSE.
Well, see, I disagree with that, mate. The maths that's needed, you learn before GCSE. So, yeah, I'd agree people should learn maths at a basic level.
Okay. Here's the other thing. Here's the other problem that makes that a problem.
I hope it's not a maths problem.
It's too easy.
For you?
Just make the...
for you, mate. And does that really matter if, you know, if it's easy, if it's just the maths that people need? If people find it easy, that's good.
Okay, right. So what... Okay.
I mean, I understand some people like challenge, but I mean, I personally like easy stuff. I much prefer that to a challenge.
It's great from all the writing.
From all the what, sorry, mate?
From all the writing. I mean,
I agree with that. Like, even though I hated maths, like, going to the maths class was just nice after English, because I could just not have to write essays.
Like, most subjects aren't actually useful at all. Like, I'm never going to use anything I learned in Latin.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Almost everything.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's
geography.
I at least find it fun to occasionally point out, oh, this word comes from the Latin blah blah blah. Oh, where'd you learn that? Oh, I did Latin GCSE. Why did you do that? It's a dead language. Shut up. Is how the conversation usually goes.
Yeah, but like, you know, every subject, I think most things aren't that useful.
Reggie, there's such a massively wide variety of things that each subject covers. An exam will can't cover anything. They need to test your ability to learn, not your knowledge. Well, I mean, I'm not disputing that. That has nothing to do with my point. My point is that the level of stuff they're testing is way harder than anything that's useful to people who don't pursue, like, careers in maths.
That's the same with other subjects, though.
Well, yeah, I'm not protecting them against reform, mate. I'm just talking in the context of maths.
Okay.
We're getting people telling me to stop.
Well, in that case, I kind of agree, I guess.
Is Michael Gove in the chat or something, like, telling me to stop because he loves his new GCSEs so much? The bad person. Well, I'm glad you agree on that then, mate. That's great. We've reached a consensus then.
I mean, I haven't really thought about it that much, but...
I understand your point, mate, that maths is useful to be taught, and I don't disagree with that. Like basic maths, addition, subtraction, multiplication, stuff like that, that you'll use generally.
Which you can learn by the end of like year 4.
Exactly. Like I remember in kind of year 6, we had these start of a lesson. We'd have a whole page, literally like a whole page full of times tables.
I don't know how I dealt with that, mate. For some reason I found that, like, fun.
Yeah, and we'd race to the end of it, and I remember it was so tense. It was incredible, like these proper, like, Grand Prix races, like people finishing seconds apart. That was great. Like, we had times tables far faster than I can probably do them now, and all the stuff that you possibly need to learn is definitely done midway through secondary school, and GCSE maths is just entirely pointless. I don't disagree that basic maths is a useful skill, but the high-level stuff is pointless to people like me, but useful to people like mate, but that's why you take A-level maths or A-level further maths, or both in his case, you know? To learn that high-level stuff that will help him, but not me.
I don't think the problem is that the GCSE is too hard. I think the problem, I guess, if we're gonna say that,
you
gonna say that it's.
You got to remember, mate, that you're speaking from the perspective of someone who finds maths, you know, logical and easy.
Yeah.
I represent the less maths inclined people.
Yeah.
I am Misha. I am the voice of the children. Stop bullying little kids.
Yeah.
Reggie, what year are you in? MuddyPuddle and I are in year 12, which is typically the year of AS levels, but they've got rid of those for our year, so we are in the first year of A levels. I don't know why there's this conspiracy theory floating around that I banned someone. I mean, I have banned some people, but I'm fairly sure I never banned you, because I remember who you are.
Yeah, you did ban quite a few people.
But they haven't come back, generally. But I definitely didn't ban Time Cat. Ban Dime Cat. Yeah. Or if I did, it would be for a reason. I don't do it for trolls. I sometimes time people out for troll. But then I'd explain that I did that. I don't ban people for troll. Do you like Attack on Titan? I don't watch anime, I'm afraid. Does it count as anime? I hope it does, otherwise I've probably offended a large group of people, but I haven't seen Attack on Titan. So I can pass no judgment. I feel you, Reggie. I failed as last year, so I'm doing year 12. Well, my commiserations to you. And, you know, I hope you can share my strong dislike of Michael Gove and his pompous elitism in making the GCSEs even harder than they were. Which is even worse for, like, Kobe's year going into GCSEs, because he has to do all of them 9 to 1. We only had to do 3: English, literature, literature. English, literature, and languish, and maths. So you can tell my English skills are incredible. But yeah, it is worse for the people after us. This is an important subject. I need more things to test you on, which is why we have a difficult maths syllabus. We need core subjects hard to justify. We need to say study. I did geography GCSE. So did mate. We stood in a river and I hated every minute of it because I couldn't even like write data down because my fingers were like frozen and numb. I couldn't move. So I, for a large part, I hated geography. But you know, it's actually helped me quite a lot in media. We talk about demographics and stuff. So that's brought back memories of the demographic transition model. Do you remember that, mate?
Sorry, demographic transition model, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't make me remember it, mate.
Well, sorry, mate?
Don't make me remember it.
Yeah. My response to the point that, like, because it's a core subject we need more difficult stuff to test it on is just no. You just give more questions of the simple stuff to drill it into your head like we had times tables in primary school. There is no need for the complicated stuff, and it's just making people fail needlessly.
Right, here's the thing.
Yeah.
What if...
Wait, mate, could I quickly answer a question that I saw before?
Yeah.
What do you use to stream? I'm using OBS, which on a tangent is, you know, unusably complicated because it never explains anything to you. It took me many online tutorials before I could get to this place, and it's still pretty badly set up. So OBS is powerful, but you know, badly designed because it just doesn't explain anything.
Okay.
Right, and
here's the thing, mate.
Yeah. Suspense. Mate. All right.
Here's the thing, mate.
All right, that was a lot of suspense there. That was like the X Factor, mate. That was an impressive level of suspense.
Well, you know,
right.
I can't just tell you.
Yeah. Go on then.
Yeah. You got an 8.
I did, much to my surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because the grade boundaries were so ridiculously low. Here's the thing.
Can I give a stat for that?
Yeah.
Can I give evidence, mate?
Huh?
Can I give evidence for that? So the pass mark, which was a grade 4, was 18.18%. 18% to pass maths.
Yeah.
And, you know, that Michael goes like, oh, it'll raise standards, but he's an idiot. It's just made people get worse grades. It is an absolute plonker. Like, of all plonkers, he is supreme plonker. And it annoys me no end that he's still in the government. But as we all know, if you're on the internet and you express an opinion, you won't be able to get a job in the future. So forget I ever said that. Carry on, mate.
So, mate, about what percentage of stuff did you actually understand from Maths GCSE?
Understand, I'd say half of it or less. Could do the methods of, I'd say about 60% of it. To about 2/3.
With that amount of knowledge, you still got an A.
Yeah.
So people don't actually need to learn everything.
But
if they just want a decent grade. If you get an A star, most people would take it on further.
Is that a good system though, mate? Why can't we just have a system where you know, ought to get a high mark on stuff that everyone should be able to know, and then if you want to pursue maths further, you take it. Like our chemistry teacher said to us, I will not allow you to take A-level chemistry if you get an A star in GCSE. You need to decide before your exam because it's a heck of a lot harder than GCSE. Like higher level stuff is completely different from the GCSE system. GCSE should be mandatory knowledge, like times tables, how to calculate a percentage, not the cosine rule, mate. Of what use is the cosine rule to me?
Well, see, if you're not that good at math, and you don't need to get an A star on it, then it's of no use at all. You can just forget about it, because the grade boundaries are so low that you'll get like a 6 or a 7 anyway, which is fine.
What's your point, mate?
My point is, you don't actually need to learn all the complicated stuff if you don't, if you find it hard.
Well, I understand that, mate, but I mean, maybe it was how it was drilled into us, our old school, but I feel like that's not a very good way to approach a GCSE, is to, because I had that kind of attitude, and they said, you know, you can't say that, you can't do that. You need to learn everything. I mean, yeah, for some topics, I'd agree. Like, the complicated shape questions, I have, like, no concept of shape at all. I just ignored them because they made no sense to me at all. Like, I understand that, but generally, omitting parts of the GCSE isn't really a good idea. Like, it's a GCSE for all 16-year-olds to take. Like, if there's bits of it that a large chunk of the population don't understand, you are doing something wrong, either in what you're expecting of them or how you're teaching them.
If there's questions that most people don't understand, then it shows who the best people are. So
if I was structuring GCSEs, mate, I'd take that into account, and what I'd have a GCSE for every subject, and then additional. So, like, your add maths would be like our Maths GCSE was, and GCSE maths, which is all you'd need, would be the basic skills. I fully understand your point there, and I agree with you, but I feel like that should be a separate exam rather than being an inaccessible part of the same exam.
It's weird. Is there, like, foundation 2 and higher?
Yes.
Did they get rid of that?
Yeah, no, they got rid of it for English, but there was foundation tier for maths, and that's a funny story, actually. I said I want to do foundation tier maths, I just don't get higher tier. And my school said to my parents, there's no foundation tier, when there was. They blatantly lied to them because they are just a bunch of snaky people who literally don't care about the truth. I mean, it is
the highest grade you can get in foundation tier.
Yeah, ultimately, mate, it was the right decision to do higher tier, but at the time, I didn't understand any of the higher tier stuff, so it didn't make sense to do higher tier. But the point is about truthfulness. That school is a shady institution, worse than David being a bad influence of all his malware.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't say shady.
Well, it's alright for you, mate. You can do maths. I think the school suits certain people better than others, and it did not suit me very well at all, and I made that extremely clear.
Okay. But that's off topic. That's not to do with this.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. You're right. I've got a philosophy essay tomorrow.
Oh no.
So our first one in timed conditions. I wonder how that's going to go. Previously we've had like...
God, I hated when I started doing the English essays in time.
Oh, I know. We had 2 weeks to write them before. I'm going to be writing mine about how a priori knowledge isn't actually real. Because it isn't. Like, a priori knowledge, basically, if you don't know, is arriving at things through logic and not experience at all. And to a certain extent, you need to learn the systems of logic. Yeah. So even a priori is a posteriori, which is the other type of knowledge, which is based on experience.
Question, mate. Like, it's so fluffy.
Wait,
and it all depends on how you interpret what it actually means.
Wait, what question?
Well, the fact, because you know, you could say that. I mean, because basically what you're saying is that like stuff you already know, you have already experienced.
Oh, mate, I should probably make it clear. That's one thing I'm going to be arguing within a question. The question actually is, like, discuss a priori arguments for the existence of God are better than a posteriori argument. So the a priori argument is Anselm's argument, the ontological argument, which goes as follows. God is the greatest being which can be conceived. A being is greater if it exists than if it's just in the mind. As God is the greatest conceivable being and nothing can be greater, God therefore must exist. So apparently that's logical, although it's a terrible argument in my opinion, because Gaunalo responds by saying, well, you could say that for anything, like the greatest conceivable island, yet so therefore that must exist, even though we know it doesn't. The greatest conceivable space hopper. Like, that, by that logic, my girlfriend must exist because she'd be better in reality. But she doesn't, I can assure you, because I'm alone. And Anselm responds by saying, well, it only applies to God, which is a terrible way to construct an argument where you have to say something like that. So, I mean, I hate the ontological argument. It's really bad. The design arguments are, well, it's basically Paley's watch. Do you remember that, mate?
Oh, yeah.
So if you come across a rock, you wouldn't question why it was there, but a watch, you can see it's been designed. The world is like that in a way that it's complicated, and it's like the ear and the eye. They're so complicated, how could they appear there by chance? But I mean, in a way, that's weak as well. There's a lot of arguments against that. And I think the best arguments are Aquinas' ones about the argument from contingency and the arguments from like infinite regress and movement. So essentially, which was the first cause argument. Do you remember them, mate?
First cause, yeah, that was probably the best one, wasn't it?
Yeah. So basically, for people who don't know, there's everything in the universe is caused. So I don't know, the voice that's coming out of my mouth is caused by my brain sending signals to my voice box or whatever. I don't know how it actually works. I'm bad at biology, but essentially like that. And then things are caused and caused, back and back and back. But then what is the first cause? Because if every cause is caused, you end up with an infinite regress, which basically means that there's causes going back and back and back forever and ever, and it will never stop. And Aquinas says, well, you can't really have that. That's silly. So, that's silly. That's from Don't Hold Me, I'm Scared reference. That's silly. How can you go to sleep if you don't know how to have dreams? But yeah, so Aquinas posits that there must be an uncaused cause, and that uncaused cause is God. The problem with that argument is that you're leaping from an uncaused cause to God, where it could just be any kind of uncaused cause. So that's the problem with that argument. But then there's ones from contingency as well, that's quite good. So that's like, everything in the universe is contingent, which means that it could have not existed. And if everything could have not existed, there's logically a point where nothing existed at all. And if there's a point at which nothing existed at all, nothing could have come from that, so therefore nothing exists now. Therefore, there has to be something which has necessarily always existed, and Aquinas says that that is God. So I reckon those are the best arguments, and Anselm's is awful. And those cosmological arguments, as they're known, are a posteriori, because they are quite logical, to be fair, but they're a posteriori, I think, because they rely on the knowledge that things are caused, for example, and that things could not exist. Although I'd say that it's just as a priori as Anselm's argument, actually. I might ask my philosophy teacher for clarification on that. I think I asked him already, but I can't remember what he said.
Anyway, mate, I better go now.
Oh, did you enjoy that little philosophy lesson there, mate?
I did, mate. That was, yeah. Bye, mate.
Bye, mate. MuddyPuddle speeds off as quickly as possible. I've had enough of this philosophy talk. Back to me maths, he says. Well, I'm glad I sort of got that out. That serves as a sort of revision, doesn't it? Reggie messing with my brain. Welcome to philosophy. That is the joy of philosophy, really. No one actually knows what they're talking about. We just sort of spout a load of rubbish. But it's fun rubbish, you know. Maybe I think I will just end up arguing from the point that everything is an a posteriori argument. There is no such thing as an a priori argument. There physically cannot be a such thing as an a priori argument. I mean, you know, all this stuff about arguments I've had to learn. Didn't just know it. I mean, who just knows about cosmological arguments, you know? You cannot have an infinite good in the same universe that has any sort of bad. Just like you cannot have an unstoppable force with an immovable object. There cannot be a god if there is a devil. Ah, welcome to Theodicy's, chum. Theodicy's tried to reconcile God's existence with evil in the world, and they go as follows. God allows evil in the world because it's a product of free will that he's given us. We have the free will to create moral evil, because it's more loving to let us do what we want than be kind of righteous kind of robots. Then there's the Irenaean Theodicy, which says that evil is here to help us develop morally. And then there's other ones like necessary contrast, like we need evil in the world to see what's good in the world. And there's sort of a little vague one, it's not really a Theodicy, and sort of karma, basically, that evil in the world gets balanced out eventually. It's not really a Theodicy, but yeah, you can't kind of prove yourself with that because Theodicies exist and you'll have to argue against them. But golden rule in philosophy, nothing can be proved, so you're always right and always wrong, which is great. That's why I don't like maths, because philosophy's nice and fluffy, so you cannot be wrong. Limited knowledge exams, you're better considering both sides of the argument and agreeing. Yeah, no, that is true, but I mean, you know, saying ultimately that a priori doesn't exist is something I'd conclude with. But if I'm going to do that, I need to work out why cosmological arguments are a posteriori. Like, if Anselm's argument is a priori, arguably so are cosmological arguments. Although a priori doesn't exist, but, you know, we'll move on to that another time. Anywho, I hope that you guys have enjoyed a bit of cheeky philosophy there, a big chat about GCSE maths, and some nice treasure hunting, which hasn't really got us much treasure, but we've sort of done that, so that's good. And I've seen feedback on Mentori. I'm glad you guys on the whole enjoyed it. Bit of a little meme. and I read the community response. It does seem like you see a video at the top of my channel page when it's new. Could I just have like a quick consensus on that? Is that true? Like when I upload a video, does it like appear right at the top of my channel above all the playlists? Yes, you're leaving. Charming. Also respect religion. I do. A lot of people don't, but religion doesn't come for a point of arguing for the existence of God with evidence. Religion is about belief and has nothing to do with arguments. If you try and argue for the existence of God on the basis of belief, that's a bad argument, because belief has nothing to do with arguing for something with evidence. You do see things on top. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for religion, a lot more than a lot of people do, and I think it deserves a lot more respect, just because it doesn't have a very good kind of evidential argument to it. That's not what religion's about anyway. So, you know, consider that the next time you say God's not real. I mean, he might not be, but religion isn't trying to prove that God does exist. They just believe that a God or gods do exist, and just respect what they believe, because they're not out to try and prove it to you, because no one can. No one can prove it one way or another. So just think about that. Anyway, enough philosophy, I'd say. Bye-bye.